Thank you, Mr. Rajiv Golapudi, for the overview. Now, moving on, we have the next session, which is Run SAP Like a Factory. So may I now have on stage Mr. Dinesh Rao, Program Director, SAP Labs India, to share some insight on Run SAP Like a Factory. Mr. Dinesh, please.
Thanks, Vidur. Thank you. So you can hear me? All right. So first of all, I just want to give a little more introduction about myself. As Ambrish said in the morning, I come from development. So I have a team of 40 people who are really working on developing some of these tools. And I have also worked closely with some of the customers out here to develop the tools that are really required and that is really useful for you. And I also am open that with the Indus group, that if you really come together and there are certain things that are pain points and we need to work together, I'm open to actually working with you on that. So with that, let me just start with Run SAP Like a Factory. So Shiva has already kind of given an overview of this whole slide, and what we are talking about is this portion here. So where you have already completed your project and then you're actually live and you're operating your system landscape. And so you want to obviously make sure that this landscape is available for your end users and they are really able to use it in a 100% manner, in the sense that it's completely performant, it's available all the time, etc. Shiva gave an analogy that this is about clearing your room, cleaning the papers or the dust around, and then arranging the chairs properly to make this use of this room effectively. I think it's not that trivial. I think some of you from Basis would agree with me that SAP technology has changed quite heavily. So when we had just the ABAP platform, it was much more easier to manage this compared to now. For example, with the entire Java technology coming in some of the solutions, with SAP's acquisitions of business objects, for example, we are moving into .NET kind of framework. So the whole technology stack has changed quite heavily. So you cannot really hire administrators who have expertise in these different technologies to manage your operations. So in that sense, I would think it's not trivial. So I would also ask one question to all the people who are in Basis here. So what is the percentage of problems that you get in the system are really initiated by the user? In the sense, the user calls you up and says that I cannot, say, log in into this system, or I'm getting a very bad response on this particular application. So what is this percentage approximately? Sorry? 40%. Okay. So which means that 90% of the time IT knows all the problems, or the other way around? Did you understand correctly?
We talk about this kind of problem.
Yeah, IT. IT in the sense like login problem. Overall, say for example, it could be that there is a user who's in some other location who calls you up and says that something is not working, for example, and at that time you just realize, oh yeah, it's not working. So you don't realize it, but then someone else calls you up and says that there's a problem. Less than 10% is what I heard, 40% is what I heard. So, in general, at least it's not close to 0%, in the sense there's a lot of times where the user calls up and that's when you realize probably there's a problem, and then you start doing the root cause and then trying to figure out the issue. So what I'm going to talk about is how IT can be really ahead of this, in the sense that ahead of the user. So before the user really calls you up, etc., you already know that there is a problem, and you probably already started the root cause analysis of this particular issue. So this is about how you really run it like a factory, in the sense that it's really up and running, and even if there are problems, the problems are known to you much in advance to the user calling you up and telling you. Yeah. So what is the meaning of Run SAP Like a Factory? So this is probably a representation of a typical IT team at a customer. So how the solution is really orchestrated at a customer. So the CIO expects high quality in terms of your project execution and also operational excellence. And when you come into the run stage, you would like to really run this landscape with the lowest TCO possible, the total cost of ownership. Yeah? So this is an expectation. So that you have time for innovating, you can implement the next business process which actually helps add value to the business. Let's look at the reality. So this is probably your operations team. So you probably have a first level support, functional support teams. There are teams which are looking at your application server. There are teams which are looking at your infrastructure. and you have the business process owner and the end user. So what typically happens is that you have problems, and the problems are distributed. The problems are being handled in various areas, and there is no central transparency on this. So there are certain teams which are working on some problems, there are certain teams which are working on the other problems. So what we propose is that you have something called as an operational control center. And the operational control center is nothing but a set of monitors which centralizes or which creates a transparency on the entire problems that you have on your landscape. So the whole idea is to kind of get a visibility into how my entire landscape is. This could be not only related to the systems, databases, etc., but how your business process is doing. And so once you have this knowledge of where my problems are, you take the critical ones which are affecting your business process and start working on improving them. And over a period of time, the idea is that all these problems kind of are gone, and then you have an IT organization which is working efficiently, and then you have the number of problems are reduced, and then you have a happy end user in the end. Yeah, so this is in theory. And what you see out here is a picture from a large bank in China, where they have implemented a mission critical support, where there is 2 FTEs per shift who are looking into these monitors, and they are the ones who are actually dispatching all the problems to the right people. And what you see out here are the projections from these monitors, which are some of the tools that we have in the Run SAP like a factory. So this is part of the solution manager. So once there are problems that are identified, so these are kind of worked upon with the root cause analysis, and then also you see how you can actually improve these monitors. Maybe after some time, this monitor is not valid anymore because you have kind of really eliminated the root cause, and then you have to look at what is the next monitor that you want to implement. The same thing in a pictorial way. So these are the monitors that I was talking about. So these are the central monitors, and the monitors are really fed from SAP Solution Manager. So there are 2 areas that we will talk about a little while later. One is the application operations, where this is really about your infrastructure in terms of your hardware, in terms of your application layer like database, operating system, etc. And then the next level is the business processes, so where you really model your business entities and then you make sure that the business process is up and running. And once you set up the monitor, as I was talking about, you need to have a continuous optimization process where you really see whether these are the monitors that are really helping you now. Have you really eliminated some of the requirements for these monitors and work on the next set of improvement. Okay, so what I talked about was theory in terms of what is a monitor, how you really improve the process. Now let's see what really goes into these monitors. Yeah, so this is real. I mean, this is not something which is like just on the slide. Just before that, one orientation on at least just to make sure that we are talking the same language. So there is this infrastructure layer. So here Rajiv already mentioned about these printers, disks, storage, etc. So this is what we call it as infrastructure operations. And then there's the application layer, which is predominantly looked upon by the basis team. So where you have your products, your interfaces, your applications, your end users, and how their performance is for them, etc. So this is what we term as application operations. And there's a highest level. This is how you should ideally do your IT management, that you really create these business processes, and then you really look upon whether your business process is up and running. So this is the most crucial value add that IT does to business, to make sure that the business is able to run their operations smoothly. And depending on how your organization is set up, so various teams are managing these components. Yeah. So now let's look at what application operations is all about. So in a nutshell, it gives you an end-to-end set of tools for you to manage your entire landscape. Yeah? So this is not necessary that it is only an SAP landscape. It could also be non-SAP components in your landscape. So everything, you have tools available to manage this entire landscape. When I say what you manage, I will just show it in a second. So these are again the various tools that are possible. I will highlight that in the next slide. And again, this is probably explained better in this slide. So when we talk about application operations, so what do we mean by that? This is the process. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to identify these papers or the dirt that Shiva was talking about. So first of all, you need to really monitor that there are certain issues. Yeah. So we offer a lot of tools to proactively monitor these. So the way you do it is, it could be that you have an operational control center where you have a monitor and there are people who are looking at it 24/7. But this is probably not the most ideal way to do it, but this is also one way you can do it. The second way to do it is, you set up the monitors, you set up the right thresholds, and as soon as there is the problem has occurred, in the sense it has exceeded the threshold, you automatically get an email in your inbox or an SMS, and then you start doing the root cause on the problem. So these are two different ways by which you identify a problem. And with 7.1, SAP has put in a lot of effort in detecting the problem early and detecting the problem smartly. So once you know now that there is a problem in your landscape, so obviously the most important task is to solve it so that the business user can actually start working again. And for that, we have a lot of analysis tools. And this was available also in 7.0. This is called root cause analysis. Some of you might be familiar with this. So this helps you to really understand where the problem is, which is the exact issue, and then really solve them. And once you solve them, you need to really make sure that it doesn't really come again, or you need to really optimize this whole system landscape in such a way that these problems do not occur again. So there are certain tools that are also available to really optimize these things. And during the entire collection of data, so as I said, we collect the entire monitoring data from all your systems, productive systems in your landscape. So we put it into a BW of Solution Manager. So this is not the BW of your ECC or whatever. A Solution Manager, when you install, it installs a BW for itself. And all this data is available inside BW. And this is, from here we can do a lot of analytics. Some of the reports that Rajiv also showed really comes out of this BW. So with this, you're able to really find out how optimally your landscape is being utilized. So you can see whether my performance for the last 1 month has been good or not. You can figure out whether the SLA that you have with your business is being met on the monthly basis or not. So all these things you can make out with this. So now I will talk about what tools are available for monitoring that there is a problem in your landscape. So one, we call it as technical monitoring, so system, database, and host. So typically your landscape will have these technical systems which you would have scaled with multiple application servers, and these are probably running in different physical hosts or different virtual hosts depending upon how your landscape is. So at any point in time, you would like to know whether all these things are running. So your users are really able to log in into the system. They are getting a good performance as per your SLA. So we have tools which makes this transparent to you as IT. So how is my system? How is it doing today? Another key monitoring is your end users. So with the internet, obviously the users are all over the place. Yeah. So you could have users in Chennai, you could have users in Singapore or even the US. And typically what happens is, when you are, say, close to the data center and then you're logging into a particular, say, transaction, maybe displaying sales order or creating an invoice or whatever, you get a decent response time. It's available for you. But then a guy in, say, Kolkata or Singapore will call up and say that, it's not working for me. So this is a typical problem. It could be because your network is down for all you know, or there is some problem with this, say, with this PC or whatever. So we have tools here by which you can proactively monitor how the response time from each of your locations is. So there are scripts that you run on these locations. So before the user is logged in at 9 o'clock in the morning, probably you already know at 7 o'clock that there is a problem from, say, Kolkata today, because maybe there is something that has happened because of which he's not able to log in. So you're already working on solving the problem for him before he even knows that there is a problem. So this is the advantage that you have. So PI, process integration, or the XI as it was called earlier. So if some of you are from XI, you know that it's a very large landscape. So you have a lot of these adapter engines which are distributed all over the place. And then typically it so happens that you're doing business with your vendors, and then there are these important messages, important documents which are going. And whenever they are stuck, then the amount of time that you spend on really resolving this problem is pretty high. So with Solution Manager, you get a centralized view of all your messages, where they are going, where they are stuck, and then you're able to do a lot of these operations like canceling a message or restarting the message and things like that. Same with BI. So when we talk about BI here, we are talking about the SAP BW, business objects, and SAP HANA. So we have a solution where you actually monitor your entire business intelligence landscape in a uniform way centrally from Solution Manager. And interface and connections are also extremely crucial, that you have all these documents which are exchanged between different SAP systems through RFC connections or HTTP. So all these things also can be monitored here. Yeah, so with this, you are able to kind of identify the problem. So now, how are you informed about these problems? Yeah? So there are multiple ways in which it happens. So one is in Solution Manager, we have a web-based interface which is called as Alert Inbox, through which you get all the problems that are there in your landscape in one place. Yeah? So technically speaking, if you have a clean inbox, in the sense 0 lines in your inbox, that means your landscape is doing really good. So there is no problem. You can, I mean, as IT, you can go home. Yeah? So it's as simple as that. Whereas the whole idea is that, yeah, you work on the problem which is most critical and then start clearing this inbox, because this is where all the problems are accumulated. If you're using SAP Solution Manager Service Desk, it is possible that you can forward these problems into the service desk. So it could happen that the IT works from, say, 9 to 6, and beyond 6 you have a 24/7 first level support, and it's